state the problem in words as clearly as possible. Every time it's the moment for me to do the podcast, to get it out before the moon cycle switches from one to the other, I think I have to wait and make more and more space for some great idea to formulate, for some kind of genius to flow. And I procrastinate. And I just spent about an hour reading a journal from 2000. I didn't get I don't even think it's worth reading anything out of it necessarily. No, I lied. Except for one thing. Do I have it open to that page? No, I can't find it at all. I went through like 3 times. I stopped recording and I went through. I cannot find the Sophocles quote. I thought it was good. But I can't remember it. And so I went on to the internet and I looked up quotes by Sophocles, thinking my brain would be triggered by this. And I saw this: silence is an ornament for women. And I thought, okay, I don't want any more Sophocles quotes. Like, was that the very beginning of the philosophy of patriarchy? Back to Sophocles? Probably yes. So let's drop him like a wet noodle for now. Question the heroic approach. Always first steps. Faced with a choice, do both. These things I'm reading to you are different oblique strategies. So this past weekend, I went to the Camden International Film Festival. Thank you, Annie. And I watched many, many films, and I got super inspired. But I think I was most inspired by a film about Brian Eno. And Brian Eno is an artist musician. And I had a mixed tape that was music for airports. And it was sort of like, nobody made this mixed tape for me. It was, I think it might have been my sister's and it got passed to me. Somebody made it for her or somebody recorded it. I don't know how I had it. But it was one of those things, those chance findings. And it became so important and special to me, this music. To be able to have ambient sound that felt good and I could dance with it, not to it. It was like a revelation for me. So I never much thought about Brian Eno, the artist, though. And when I was watching this documentary, I had that feeling that I've had a couple of times most recently, that nothing is insignificant. And I just felt the strength of that, not the person, but the art, what came through that person and lived with me and held some part of my own artistry. Just that half a side of a mixed tape. The documentary was really interesting. It was partly edited by AI, so every time it's shown will be a different version of the film. So you would never see the same film twice. And I found that fascinating. And there was one moment when Brian was talking about his art and when he was a younger person. And he said there were 4 things that inspired him. And all he wanted to do was keep being in relationship to those 4 things. One was this special color purple that he mixed watercolor to get, a blue and a red, this particular color purple, and a horizon line where the water meets the sky, the sound of a beautiful, deep woman's voice. I can't remember the artist, but you will see it if you see this film. And one other thing that I can't remember, 1/4 thing. The reason it mattered to me is I often discount my desire to make art because it seems so redundant and simple and silly, the things that I'm interested in seeing, the forms that I'm interested in seeing, even the choreography that I want to do seems like I just love the same thing and I don't want to innovate it. I just want to experience a relationship with it. There's something about, maybe it's because he's a successful white male. That wasn't how it felt when I was watching the film. I felt like there was validation in this particular way of wanting to be in relationship to ideas, and that was very important. I felt validated. And he talked about oblique strategies. And this is something that he developed with another artist, Peter Schmidt. And both of them were kind of doing the same thing simultaneously, using these handwritten cards for moving through an artistic process, very much like using oracle cards and chance operations. And so as I was sitting there watching the film, I just started daydreaming about writing a letter to Brian Eno, asking for the cards, and letting him know how his art formed me also as an artist, and neither of us could have known that, but how supportive it was that he did what he did. And it came through to me in this very kind of roundabout, obscure way, unintentional. So anyway, then I went online and I found out you can just print out the oblique strategies. I don't actually need Brian Eno's permission or his benevolence bestowed upon me directly, although that might be nice and interesting. So I printed them out, and I've been reading them to you as we go. I'll read another one here. Be extravagant. Question the basic approach. The most important thing is the thing that is most easily forgotten. I've always loved chance operations. The first time I did a performance using chance operations was with the brilliant Paul Turner, Duchess. And I worked with him in college, and he wanted to experiment with chance operations a la John Cage. And he gave us these phrases, and then we memorized the phrases. And then as we were in the middle of a performance, I don't know if he did it this way, but it was like he pulled numbers out of a hat and he would shout out different phrase numbers that we would do, and then they would all be joined together. So every performance was different. There's something thrilled me so much about how I had to be in performance when I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, you knew what you were going to do. You had the phrases set, but you didn't know the order and how you would execute them and where you would be in space on the stage at the time. It changed the sense of performance into, it was very adventurous, and it dropped some kind of responsibility to make it a certain way, because the best thing I could do would be to be awake and listening and flexible and resilient and ready. And there's something about that still thrills me, that I'm kind of seeking for over and over again. And I think that's why I love using oracle cards, to shift the way my brain is thinking and keep myself awake and ready to see what is this relationship with creativity and the pulsing sense of what it is to be alive. All right. That's what's going on anyway. Welcome. Hi, thank you for being here. I am your host, Ann Headley, and this is my podcast, What is Going On Anyway?, where I contemplate the current moon and what that means for me as a pathway through daily life. I wonder how universal themes show up for us, for me, through different moon cycles. And as I reach for meaning, using my intuition and imagination to share with you, I find I'm discovering a richness in the simplicity of paying attention to life exactly as it is. I've been feeling a little funny about this full moon. I mean, full moons are full moons. I want to read this text that I wrote to a friend. Big moon time for sure. I'm so full, it's hard to make sense of it. But maybe that's the point. Not being able to control the spillover is true fullness. Could I rest in it? The messy, sloshy, fermented sluice. It attracts wasps and ants, with mildew forming on the splashes that made puddles, then evaporated. I suppose, if anything, I can swim around in the gathering of the full moon. What happened these last couple of weeks? Most especially, what were the coincidences? And how are they markers of the magic in my life? I started recording, and then I took this big break while the actual full moon was its fullest. And then I started recording again. There's something about this full moon that feels very intense and powerful and like it's going to have its way with you, with me, with us, whether you like it or not, that it's going to make you take notice. So this evening, I had recorded a little bit, then I went off to take ballet class and picked up Matthew from his dad's house, and we were driving home, and we were coming around this familiar turn, and there was a big light coming our way, and we could see trooper lights blinking. And then I saw someone with a flashlight, and my first thought was, wow, they're really sort of dancing with that, aren't they? And I quickly could see that it was an officer gesturing for me to slow down. And I slowed down, and in front of us, in our traveling lane, was a car turned over. First responders, besides the police, hadn't come yet. And I pulled over, and we were just sort of stunned. If I had been 10 minutes earlier, could we have crossed paths? Would that have been a dangerous situation for us? I was scared. It was sort of shocking. There wasn't anybody near the vehicle, and the troopers were looking for whoever was in it. So there, Matthew and I were just on this full moon evening watching an accident. And we finally were able to talk to someone who said that we wouldn't be able to proceed forward around the accident, that he said they would be there for a while and we really needed to turn around and go back. By the time we did that, we had to pass by an ambulance and fire truck and other first responders. They had closed off the road behind us. So we arrived right on scene before most of the first responders. This funny little window where we were witnesses to, I don't know how to describe. I don't know if it was a tragedy, but it was certainly a shocking. Car had flipped over. It was upside down in front of us, and it was hard to see. It was dark, and there was like a searchlight right in my eyes. My kids made fun of me afterwards, saying, like, you probably just have bad night vision. But Matthew agreed that, no, it was actually just a really like a spotlight right into our eyes, and it was hard to see. And we turned around, and we slowly drove home. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that feels to me kind of the energy of this full moon, that there are things that will land upside down right in front of you that you can't ignore. I feel like that's a theme of this particular time. There's not necessarily a judgment around that, but we won't be able to not see things. certain things are going to land right in front of us, just like that accident landed right in front of us tonight. So what do we do with that? What do we do when we see things that we don't necessarily want to see? I believe that this full moon for us is a marker of a different, up to this point, we thought and behaved a certain way. We could not resist our patterns, our conditionings. We tried, and, sometimes with great effort, we could do differently. There's something about, I don't love being predictive because I'm just sitting here being like, so doubtful, so much doubt, like, I'm totally wrong. But I'm just sharing with you the feeling that I've got about this is we've just slid over an edge, or maybe we're on the slide down the side of a mountain. We've reached some pinnacle, and we will have some momentum to live life on our terms. Maybe. That's what I sure hope for. That's what I hope that the vision that I'm seeing around this particular moon is giving us a little bit of momentum towards building, creating, and establishing the kind of world that we want to be in. I hope. I've been hoping this for a long time, but there's something about right now which maybe just feel it. Just see if there's anything that is shifting in your life right now that feels like it confronts old ways of being or old thinking patterns. It's more about the thinking patterns inside, the ones that say scarcity is real and things will never change, and I have to do it because that's the way it's done. That kind of stuff. Feel how those things get replaced with hopeful, inspiring, optimistic thoughts about potential ways that life could be better and different, innovative ways. That's my prediction. That's my idea. I wanted to talk about the things that I love, that I felt inspired when in that film Eno, when it was sort of like, there's just a couple of things that he just wanted to do and be in relationship with. And that was the basis of art making. For me, it's movement and also spoken word and music and forms, darkness with light. I love shadows. I love light, beauty in the ordinary, and the hopeful potential that love exceeds power and control, and how they also work together and not separately. I was at Mass Mocha with my mother, my sister, and Alden, my second child. And Laurie Anderson has a exhibit there. And there's this one piece there called Scrolls. And she used AI. And I think that's interesting because whoever made the film Eno, I say whoever, I'm just not looking it up. Maybe I can put a link to it below in the show notes. And I'll link also a place where you can go to the website and you can also get the oblique strategies, like 100 cards. I'm going to read another one right now. Always give yourself credit for having more than personality. Okay. Always first steps. Idiot glee. Oh, I do that one. So back to scrolls. In the exhibit, you can see this book that's been written, and then there's a couple of examples. And Laurie Anderson worked with some generative AI. I think it was with a university in Australia. That's the way I'm recalling it. And they took the whole Bible, King James Version, I think, And they took a whole lot of Laurie Anderson's work, her writing, and input it all into this artificial intelligence. And then the AI created a new Bible that was both. And when I read it, there's something so irreverent and joyful, and like the sacred clown. It's like, oh my, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. But then I was thrilled with it because the Bible has never been something that I felt was honest completely. There was this sense that the editing of the Bible didn't include everything there that it could, and that the Bible just feels patriarchal, and it is. I'm not wrong about that. So to have this art piece, Scrolls, it feels like a colander where I was able to rinse my inherited Christian dogma. And what remained that didn't get washed through those holes was something that felt very sacred and real to me, and a little bit silly. It's like the power and control of those texts got released. The patriarchy got released, and then there was this essential, sacred, and silly bit left. And I'm sharing this because, like the way Brian Eno's team used AI to edit that film, and Laurie Anderson used AI to create this brilliant piece of art, I think it's important to consider that AI could be a wonderful partnership. I hear a lot of folks being really suspicious and scared. Like there was a trend a while ago, maybe a couple of years ago, where people were using, I can't remember what the app was anymore, but they were using that to generate fantastical portraits of themselves using AI. And there were a lot of folks who were saying this is problematic. And maybe it is. I don't know enough about it to say whether it is or whether it isn't. But the sense I got is very much like going back to early parenting and how there was one pure way of parenting that didn't include any screen time. Lots of questions about that. And then there was this sense that we were ruining our kids, those of us who let our kids be on screens. That's a longer conversation too, because screen time as a general, there's a lot of things that happen on our screens, right? Like I write on my screens. I take videos, and I practice photography, and I research, and I take sound recordings, and I do so many things using the technology of my phone and my computer. To say that screen time is all bad, it's denying the reality of the time that we live in. And I feel that there's something here with AI too. It's like, how do we use it as a tool and hold our agency and autonomy rather than just pushing it away and saying that it's all bad, because it is here and it is already being in use. How can we bring ourselves to the table too and utilize it for our benefit, for our creativity, for our freedom? Maybe that's a big, long conversation, and I'm sure there's a lot that I don't understand. I I don't want to be naive about it, but I also think that when we start to be able to understand what the potential is to write, say, in collaboration with AI, to make art in collaboration with AI, that allowing it to do some of the things that would otherwise be impossible, I just find that interesting. I think it's worth looking at. I don't want to take a whole lot of time this episode. I want to get right to the I Ching, see what the I Ching has to say to us, and reflect on that. My sensibility is that it's okay to take a big exhale, that there was a lot coming up to this full moon. I know for myself it feels important to make little notes. What were those things, those sort of magic crossroads that happened for you in the last 2 weeks? Can you look back and think about those people that you ran into several times, or somebody that came up out of the blue, or a book that fell off of your shelf and now that you're interested in becoming reacquainted with? What are those things that happened in the last 2 weeks? And let's pretend that they're incredibly significant and they're magic markers. We were saying magic marker earlier today. You know you're old if you still call them magic markers because kids today just say markers. That was the brilliance of Pia brought that in, right? Magic markers. But let's use that. So those moments, shiny coincidences, what did you do in those last 2 weeks? What if you could just flip back quickly through your calendar and just look at, oh, wow, look at those 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks, I'm going to pretend like I'm an oracle here. Those 2 weeks are showing you the windows of perspective that you're going to be looking out through those windows of perspective. So say you got back in touch with someone you hadn't been in touch with for a long time. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying that that relationship is the important thing moving forward, though it may be. I'm saying the perspective that that brings into your life is the way you're going to see forward. I can give you an example. A few years ago, I went to this place that I really love. It's up in the boulders, dropped my phone, wrote a poem about it, spoke that poem to an audience, and I hadn't been back there, even though I thought I was going to go back like every week and talk to the rocks and figure all kinds of things out. But I hadn't been back in quite a long time. It's not super easy to get up there. By the time I get up there, I'm really out of breath and thinking I should be in better shape. But last week, it just struck me that I needed to go back there. And I took Sadie there. And that's just an important place. So I would consider that, not that I have to go back there or that is going to be a significant part of what I'm seeing as this next cycle of time, but the way I feel when I'm there, the things that I think about, what I wonder over, and the perspective that I have from that place is important for me to hold as I move into this next time period. That's what I'm talking about. So it was the boulders for me, but it may be a friendship or a conversation or a really funny kind of coincidence. All of those magic markers, if you could gather them up and take a look at them, just take the time to look at, not just let them slide aside, but actually write it down if you're inclined to do that. The boulders. Meeting up with this friend who practices this particular practice that I'm interested in. This book about ancient goddesses that fell off of my bookshelf. Just writing all of those things down and letting them be significant because the magic showed up for you. And that way of being, letting creativity have a say in your life, is important moving forward. Okay, so what does the I Ching have to say about this? Oracle of I Ching, what would you like us to know for this next 2-week cycle, and also this next forward motion cycle, this next feeling of the end of the year and into the middle of the next year? That's sort of the time period that I'm feeling right now. Oh, we got the tiger again. We got 10 treading. The tiger. Where is the tiger? Do you remember, it was a few episodes ago, episode 14, where is the tiger? The question was about, where is that powerful thing? So let's go back and find it. Where is the tiger? Do you know how to work with such power? And I would say that by finding those magic markers and seeing if you can look at life through the lens of your synchronicities, that's where your tiger is. This hexagram outlines the foundation of proper conduct within ourselves, with those with whom we may have conflicts, and within the larger society. It serves to remind us that no genuine gains can be made unless we are rooted firmly in the principles of the sage. An image often associated with this hexagram is that of treading on the tail of a tiger. The tiger may be some strong or malevolent force in your own personality, or it may be a particularly volatile individual or situation with which you have to deal. In either case, the advice of the I Ching is the same. One avoids the bite of a tiger by treading carefully. To tread carefully means that we remain steadfastly innocent and conscientious in our thoughts and actions. In the end, it is our inner worth that determines the outer conditions of our lives. Those who resolve to persevere in humility, sincerity, and gentleness can tread anywhere, even on the tail of a tiger, and meet with success. We get 2 changing lines, and I want to read them because I think that's important right now. Others must be allowed to find their own way. Be friendly, but cling to correctness, humility, and detachment from events. Inner independence leads to good fortune. Acceptance and inner balance move mountains that striving cannot. The fruit of good fortune springs from the seed of good conduct. And in these cases, the advice that we're getting is let go. Let go of the way you think things should be right now. Find your inner independence. Let yourself accept whatever is happening and look back to the inside self. Do you feel balanced? We get so thrown off balance that it's hard to get that center grounding cycling back through us. And I think this is incredibly important. I've been practicing it. Where is my center ground? Where is my center ground? I need to stay here. That's my job. That's my occupation. So I have to detach from outer events in order to stay here in this center. And the promise is that staying allows good fortune to spring. That good conduct is staying with yourself. Acceptance and inner balance move mountains that striving cannot. I think that's super to remember for this next cycle of time. It moves to hexagram 54, the marrying maiden, which brings the questions: how can you grow into this situation? What does it mean to you to come second? How sustainable is this? The marrying maiden means the beginning and end of humanity, as Chen in the east means spring ascent, and Tui in the west means autumn decline. The commentary then explains the name of the hexagram by citing the attributes of the 2 trigrams, joyousness and movement. The lake is stirred and awoken by thunder, the vibrations traveling deep through the water. The noble one is inwardly as fluid as the lake, always open and responsive. So the shock of the new quickens her heart to a new awareness, and she senses the currents of change. She sees how things that are complete are also flowing like water, and this is how they endure, as the generations of a family endure. And as the spreading vibrations from the thunder reveal what is flawed, she also gains a direct and sure knowledge of what is too brittle to last. This feels just right. Staying centered and grounded, open and responsive. Some things are complete. Those things are always flowing. They endure. Spreading vibrations of thunder revealed what is flawed and what is too brittle to last. And I'm afraid that is what we're seeing more and more of. Things that are too brittle to last. And at the same time, juxtaposed with those things that we know to be true and enduring. And one of those things is our own relationship with ourself and our ability to find our center ground. I think that's what these times are all about. And with that, it is time to leave you. I am so tired. I need to recover. I'm going to give you a couple more of the oblique strategies. Change instrument roles. I'm going to do a new one. Don't be frightened of cliches. What would make this really successful? No answers to those. It's late and I'm going to go to bed now. Thank you for being here with me. You can always look me up at my website, www.annheadley.com. It should be linked in the show notes. You can support me through Patreon, www.patreon.com/watermoonstudios. May you be well. May you know peace. May all beings everywhere, whether known to me or unknown, know peace. And may they be well. Until next time, bye for now.